Hey guys, what's up? Sando here, and today I'll be telling you a story about the newest Shanling M7 digital audio player that carries a lot of tech from its bigger and pricier M9 brother. So it uses probably the fastest CPU of the moment that you can find in portable digital audio players, an unlocked Android 10.0, a flagship ESS Saber DAC used in current mode operation, so that's amazing, and JFET amplifiers that are providing close to 1 watt of power on its balanced 4.4mm jack. It's one of those units that makes me truly excited about, and I cannot wait to tell you more about this one. It goes for $12.49 and it's time to check it out. Design-wise, it looks very much the same to its twin brother M9, which, mind you, is a lot more expensive. So this one is just shorter, it's lighter, and of course it's a lot cheaper. Its smoothed out corners remind me about former Shanling devices, but thanks to wave-like patterns, the newest unit feels spray-painted with a Future 5 flavor all over it. I didn't know how I would react to its unusual looking case with those sound waves, on its sides, but after playing with it for a few weeks now, it started growing on me. You can't beat Shanling at their own game, and their game is ergonomics and layout, as M7 has only 3 buttons and a single volume wheel, and it cannot get any simpler than this. You have your play, pause, next and previous buttons, 2 headphone jacks, a volume wheel, and that's it. Its buttons are flushed, sturdy, and aren't wobbling at all, providing a satisfying click once pressed. They went with a 5-inch Full HD screen that is bright, colorful, and offers great viewing angles thanks to an IPS panel. Third-party apps looked sharp to me, and there's finally a much smaller chin, creating an almost bezel-less front panel. As for tech inside it, it rocks the fastest system on chip that you can find on any portable DAP on the moment, and by that I mean the Snapdragon 665, 6 gigs of RAM memory and 128 gigs of ROM memory are being provided, so you can store a good deal of music on its internal memory. It's powered by an unlocked version of Android 10.0 that supports Google Play Store, so you can install all your daily driver apps. It uses a flagship ES9038 Pro DAC chip used in current mode operation, and for this reason a dedicated current voltage conversion stage was built around it. They went overkill with its head amp section using smooth and warm sounding OPA 2211, followed by high current Muses JFET amplifiers and by a robust buffer stage. It has 3 gain settings, and on the highest it outputs 900 mW into 32 ohms on its balanced 4.4mm jack, instantly making it the second most powerful DAP I've tested around here. It supports dual-band Wi-Fi and all those fancy Bluetooth codecs as a sender and as a receiver, and it also offers full MQA support. Amazing specs all around, but let's check how it actually performs. I know that most of you are using portable digital audio players with IEMs, with portable over-ear headphones, and that's okay. That's exactly the main reason why would you buy such things. But I'm one of those crazy dudes that want to drive desktop planar headphones, dynamic headphones on the go, maybe in hotel rooms, on a plane. So that's why I'm always hunting for overpowerful portable digital audio players that could provide a little more power, a little more headroom, a little more control. So I could drive something like these when I'm going for in long or short trips. I like IEMs, of course, but I believe that desktop open back headphones, they are sounding much better to me, especially when it comes to dynamics and scale and detail, retrieval, all those things combined. So that's why I always searching for portable devices that can drive them, something like this. So I've connected those Kenelton Rognir planar on its 4.4mm balanced output. High gain, I could reach maybe 60, maybe sometimes 65 out of 100. And a minute it didn't pass, I was already smiling, toy tapping, headbanging, because this one is a technical sounding DAC, but it's not super linear, it's not very serious sounding. This is not a clinical sounding device, so it certainly adds a little bit more emotions. It's a more musical, smoother, fuller bodied sounding device compared to, say, FiO M17, for example. M7 was easily driving the Kennerton Rogner. I could easily go to rock concert levels. It was adding a little bit of energy in the lowest octave, so it was punchier and harder slamming in the bass. Something that I cannot say about a lot of mid-level to top-tier portable digital audio players. When I've seen those JFETs listed on its spec sheet, I knew that this one will be slightly more fun, slightly more engaging sounding, so it will impress immediately a music addict, making it slightly more special to me compared to other devices. If you ever tried their former flagship M8 DAP, then you know how important the musical involvement to Shanling really is, and I'm glad that M7 goes pretty much with the same sound tuning, with the same sound signature, so it's exactly as musical, as engaging, just a little clearer sounding, a little faster sounding. And if I'm sounding like a fanboy, like a Shanling fanboy that tries to hype the M7, that's actually not the case. This is exactly how M7 appeared to me. And I believe that at this price point, at $1,250, this is certainly the nicest sounding digital audio player that I've tried. Very impressive. I will skip talking about its noise floor because all the newest generation digital audio players have basically a noiseless performance, even with ultra-sensitive IEMs. So their M6 and M8 was pretty much noiseless with all my IEMs, portable headphones and desktop headphones, and I believe that M7 goes with the same working principle. So it's simply noiseless, even at maximum volume, high gain, and 4.4mm jack. Moving on to power output, 900 milliwatts of power on its balanced 4.4 jack is actually a lot of power, making it the second most impressive unit that I've tried around here, being outperformed only by a single FiO M17. So it's pretty much on the same level with the top-of-the-line M9. It's slightly more powerful to their former flagship M8. So driving all sorts of IEMs, portable over-ears, desktop headphones actually was never a problem. On high gain and 4.4 out, I was at around, maximum I could go was around 60 out of 100 with the Sennheiser HD800. 65 with the Kennerton Rogner, I was at around 50 with Apos Caspian and Kennerton Valley, and I was arriving in between 80, maybe 85 with the Odyssey LCD4 and LCD5, and mind you, these are basically one of the hardest to drive headphones that I have at my disposal. So suggesting that power was actually never an issue with the small fellow, so this one is a very powerful unit. M7 was pumping a slightly higher energy, let's say so, in the lowest octave, so it was slightly more impressive in the bass. It was always decompressing my music, so the soundstage was quite big. It was always pushing those dynamics around. It was tightly controlling the drivers of all these headphones. So Kennerton Rogner actually sounded very, very impressive, exactly how they sound on some desktop headphone amplifiers. And these ones were close to, desktop headphone amplifiers, so very impressive when it comes to driving heavier loads. So the only headphone that didn't work was the HiFi Susvara, but we already know how hungry that headphone is, so it wasn't really a surprise to me. Moving on to Soundstage and DAP, if you want the most spacious sound, the biggest sound, the most eerie sound, then as an audio designer you have 3 quest lines to finish. So first of all, you need a very transparent, very clean DAC section. And knowing that Shanling used that ES9038 Pro in current mode operation with a discrete current to voltage conversion stage already tells me how crazy, how serious Shanling was about its DAC section. So this is a very impressive DAC implementation, very clean sounding in here. Secondly, you need a very high performance and powerful output stage. So you can push that signal to noise ratio a little higher, you can get a little higher dynamics, and for that you will need to use, for the best results, I recommend it's balanced output. And the third rule is that you need the highest possible channel separation or the lowest possible channel crosstalk is basically the same. So if you are listening at 85 dB, it means that you need to have at least a minus 85 dB channel crosstalk or lower. So this one has a channel crosstalk of minus 75 dB on its regular jack and minus 115 dB on its balanced connection. So no matter how crazy you are, how loud you are going on its balanced output, you'll never cross the left and right channel. So if you want the biggest possible sound, please use its balanced connection for the best results. M7, of course, met all those requirements and can be described as spacious, big sounding. It was pretty easily focusing on all those small things playing in the background. With something like Sennheiser HD800S, I never felt that the soundstage was collapsing on me or that everything was happening inside my head. Everything was going outside my head, so it sounded actually quite big, very much the same like a desktop headphone amplifier. It was certainly bigger sounding compared to entry-level THX and NFC amplifiers, something that I cannot say about a lot of portable digital audio players. So it has a very impressive channel separation, and of course it shows when live music starts playing. It always decompresses my music, just adding a little bit more space in between the most right and left sounds. And in all fairness, this is one of the nicest soundstage and depth I've experienced from a portable device. Moving on to how fast and impactful it can sound, usually with portable devices where internal space is so important, you are getting either the speed or the slump, but never both. With a careful selection of components, you can get that, but that happens very, very rarely, without halting dynamics and without pressing the brakes with some faster tunes. I remember clearly that with FiO M11 Plus and Shanling M6 version 21, I was getting a lightning fast speed, but a so-so, just a mediocre, impact into my eardrums. And on the other side of the rope, I was getting an amazing impact with something like a Hiby R5 Gen 2, especially with that Class A mode engage, but just a mediocre speed of delivery. And the same can be said about Hiby RS6. That one was quite mellow, quite gentle sounding, regardless of those settings. When it comes to dynamics, there is always a balancing act between speed and impact, and if I'm taking both into equation, then I believe just a single unit fully satisfied my needs, and that was FiO M17, especially put in that DC power mode. The second most impressive unit was Shanling M8, and I believe that M7 just took its place because it's exactly as impactful but slightly faster sounding compared to that one. M7 was never limiting dynamics, and if you need a fun sounding little DAP that is both speedy and impactful, then M7 seems like a very easy recommendation to make. When it comes to detailed retrieval or how much information it can retrieve from your musical files, I believe that this one sounded clearer, more detailed, more transparent compared to their former flagship M8. So there was more low-level information with this one, and while it was slightly clearer, slightly more defined, it was never poaching me, it was never screaming from afar, hey look, there's a new micro detail happening somewhere in that corner, hey look how clean those double drums sounded. It actually never did that. It didn't always work as a magnifying glass for my tunes, and I believe that it was never clinical sounding as several ES9038 Pro designs might sound. I think that Shanling nicely balanced its clean sounding nature by adding more oomph in the bass, more saturation in the mid-range for a more enjoyable listen in the long run. So no, this is not your mastering error sniffer, but it doesn't need to, because sometimes the act of music listening is more important, and this is where M7 just shines so brightly. With all that said, it was more impressive sounding in here, clearer, more transparent compared to entry-level DACs from SMSL, Topping and Sheet Audio, as a good selection of components always leaves a mark. Moving on to the frequency response, even without any kind of burn-in, without updating to the newest firmware, without putting it on planar headphones, it was always visceral and thumping sounding in the bass. And it was not only very physical and fun sounding in there, but also highly technical and really nimble sounding. Kennerton Rognure became so impactful sounding that at times I needed to lower that volume so I wouldn't get punched in the face by powerful bass notes. So this one is a mean sounding unit, and if you are a bass lover, then strap yourself in as you are going for a wild ride. Usually when ESS Sabre Silicon hops on board, I'm preparing for a dead neutral, for linear, for clean, defined, but less involving mid-range performance. However, everything that surrounds that DAC chip, that silicon, is of course a lot more important. So I wasn't surprised getting that overwhelming sensation of warmth, of liquidity that was pouring from M7. It sounded so close to their M8 that you wouldn't believe that these two have very different DAC chips. In this regard, this is probably the warmest and the most natural sounding ESS Sabre equipped digital audio player that I've tried up to this point. Very different sounding compared to, say, a Fire M17, for example. As for treble, there is some softness and easiness in a way that makes listening to rock tunes a breeze, even with Hiby headphones. So it's a highly technical treble, but without the ringing associated with entry to mid-level converters. So it's a brightness-free unit while keeping up with double drums and never messing with their leading edge, with their speed and impact. Overall, it provides an extended frequency response, with a small exception that bass and mid-range stood out immediately, putting a bit more energy and substance in there. I also compared this one with a Hiby RS6. You can find all that in my written review below or somewhere around here. It's on chapter 9 and I believe that it's worth your while. Wrapping things up, if you are hunting for overachieving portable DAPs that are up there with some of the best that I tried without punching a hole in a pocket, then I believe that Shanling is overqualified for the job. You won't find a similar spec sheet, component selection, build quality and sound quality at $1249. And for all of the reasons combined, I believe that it fully deserved my highest gold award. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. My full in-depth review can be found below. Please check that out. And as usual, listen to more tunes, be positive, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!